The wind whispers secrets through the gnarled branches of ancient oaks, carrying with it the scent of decay and forgotten dreams. Can you hear it? The faint melody of a music box, its notes distorted by time and distance, beckoning you closer. Welcome, dear listeners, to a tale that will chill your very soul. I am the Nightmare Maestro, and tonight, I invite you to step into the shadows of the Collector's Keep. Our story begins on a rain-soaked evening, where 5 teenagers find themselves stranded on a lonely country road. Their names? Zephyr, the charismatic leader; Lyric, the skeptical artist; Quill, the bookish introvert; Onyx, the rebellious outsider; and Ember, the intuitive empath. Little do they know that their quest for shelter will lead them to a place where reality bends and nightmares come alive. As lightning illuminates the sky, revealing the silhouette of a Victorian mansion looming in the distance, our unsuspecting protagonists are drawn towards its promise of refuge. But tell me, dear listeners, when was the last time you truly felt safe in the dark? The gravel crunches beneath their feet as Zephyr leads the group up the overgrown path. Tangled vines seem to reach for their ankles, and the air grows thick with an oppressive silence. Lyric's voice cuts through the quiet. Guys, I've got a bad feeling about this place. But desperation pushes them forward, towards the imposing oak door that stands like a sentinel, guarding secrets best left undisturbed. Quill's trembling hand reaches for the brass knocker, shaped like a grotesque face frozen in a silent scream. The sound echoes through the mansion, reverberating in a way that seems to defy the laws of physics. Moments pass, each second stretching into eternity, until finally, the door creaks open of its own accord. A voice, smooth as silk yet cold as the grave, drifts from the darkness within. Welcome, young friends. I've been expecting you. The teenagers exchange nervous glances, unaware that they've just crossed the threshold into a nightmare from which there may be no escape. As our protagonists step into the dimly lit foyer, their eyes struggle to adjust to the gloom. Shadows dance on the walls, cast by flickering candles that seem to defy the drafts whispering through the mansion. And there, standing at the foot of a grand staircase, is a figure that sends shivers down their spines. He introduces himself simply as the Collector, a tall, gaunt man with eyes that gleam with an otherworldly hunger. His suit, impeccably tailored, seems to shimmer with patterns that twist and writhe when you look too closely. You must be tired from your journey, he purrs, gesturing towards the depths of the house. Please, make yourselves at home. There's so much I'd like to show you. As the teenagers follow their host deeper into the mansion, Ember whispers to Onyx, something's not right. It's like the house is alive. If only they knew how right she was, and how wrong things were about to become. Portraits that seem to follow their every move. My collection, he says with a pride that borders on mania, is quite unique. Each piece tells a story, holds a memory, a life, you might say. Zephyr, always the brave one, steps closer to examine a painting of a young woman. Her eyes, rendered in exquisite detail, seem to plead for help. As he leans in, a whisper tickles his ear, so faint he almost believes he imagined it. Run, it says, before it's too late. The Collector's hand clamps down on Zephyr's shoulder, startling him. Fascinating, isn't she, he says, his grip uncomfortably tight. But come, there's so much more to see. The night is young, and my collection, it hungers for new additions. As they move deeper into the labyrinthine mansion, the group finds themselves inadvertently separated. Corridors twist and turn, defying logic and memory. Quill and Lyric find themselves in a library where the books seem to breathe, their pages rustling with unspoken tales of horror. Zephyr and Ember stumble into a conservatory, its glass panels revealing a garden that couldn't possibly exist, plants with teeth, flowers that weep blood, and trees that reach out with grasping branches. And Onyx? She finds herself alone in a room filled with mirrors, each reflection showing a slightly different version of herself, some screaming silently, others grinning with malevolent glee. The collector's voice echoes through the house. Don't be shy, my young friends. Explore your heart's content. After all, you'll be part of this place, forever. In the library, Quill's curiosity gets the better of him. He reaches for a leather-bound tome, its cover unmarked save for a single, pulsing vein. As his fingers brush the spine, the book springs open, pages fluttering wildly. Words leap from the paper, swirling around him in a vortex of ink and parchment. Lyric watches in horror as Quill's eyes go blank, his mouth opening in a silent scream. The words seep into his skin, leaving intricate patterns like twisted tattoos. When the maelstrom subsides, Quill stands motionless, his eyes now pools of inky darkness. Quill? Lyric whispers, her voice trembling. But the thing that turns to face her is no longer her friend. With a voice that sounds like pages tearing, it speaks. Quill is just a character now, trapped in the story. And you, Lyric, you're next. As Zephyr and Ember frantically search for their friends, they stumble upon a hidden study. Dusty tomes and arcane artifacts clutter every surface, but it's a weathered journal that catches Zephyr's eye. With shaking hands, he opens it, and the terrible truth begins to unfold. The collector, Zephyr reads aloud, his voice barely above a whisper, is no man, but an entity as old as fear itself. It feeds on the essence of the living, trapping souls in objects of beauty and terror. Ember gasps as the implications sink in. The paintings, the books, they're all people? A slow clap echoes from the doorway. The collector stands there, his form seeming to shift and waver like smoke. Bravo, he says, his voice now a chorus of countless trapped souls. You've uncovered my little secret. But tell me, what good is knowledge when you're about to become part of the exhibition? The collector's laughter reverberates through the mansion as he announces the rules of his twisted game. You have until dawn to find a way out, his voice booms from everywhere and nowhere. Survive, and you're free to go. Fail, and you'll join my collection for eternity. Shadows writhe and stretch, forming grotesque shapes that lunge at the teenagers. Zephyr grabs Ember's hand, pulling her through a door that wasn't there a moment ago. They find themselves in a ballroom where ghostly couples waltz to an unseen orchestra, their faces contorted in eternal anguish. Meanwhile, Lyric flees from the thing that was once Quill, her artistic mind struggling to process the horrors she's witnessing. And Onyx? She stares into the mirrors, watching as her reflections begin to step out of their frames, each one whispering a different way to escape or to surrender. As the night wears on, Zephyr and Ember discover the true nature of the mansion. It's alive, Ember whispers, her empathic abilities overwhelmed by the suffering that permeates every wall. The house is an extension of the collector. It's digesting us. They find themselves in what appears to be the heart of the house, a cavernous room with a pulsing, fleshy mass at its center. Veins and arteries stretch from it, disappearing into the walls and floor. Each beat sends a shudder through the entire structure. Zephyr, his leader's instincts kicking in, says, if we destroy this, maybe we can weaken the collector and save the others. But as they approach, The flesh writhes and shapes itself into a familiar face, Quill's, its mouth opening in a silent plea for help. Lyric finds herself cornered in a room filled with blank canvases and paints that smell of copper and decay. The collector materializes before her, his form now a swirling vortex of colors and shapes. "Your talent is wasted in the world outside," he croons. "Join my collection willingly, and I'll give you the power to create art that will live forever." For a moment, Lyric is tempted. She reaches for a brush, its bristles seeming to writhe with anticipation. But then she remembers Quill, remembers the terror in his eyes as he was consumed. With a cry of defiance, she hurls the paints at the collector, watching as they sizzle and burn where they touch him. The collector's expression twists from benevolence to rage. "So be it," he snarls. "You'll join the collection either way, but now, I'll make sure your eternity is filled with nothing but blank canvases and broken brushes." Onyx, still trapped in the room of mirrors, watches as her reflections act out different scenarios. In one, she sees herself escaping the mansion, returning to a normal life. In another, she's consumed by the collector, her essence trapped in a beautiful, terrible artifact. But it's the third reflection that catches her attention. This Onyx stands tall, wielding a shard of broken mirror like a weapon. The mirrors show truth, this reflection speaks. "Break them all, and you'll shatter the collector's illusions." With a moment of hesitation, Onyx picks up a candlestick. The first mirror shatters easily, and with it, a piece of the collector's power seems to falter. But as she moves to break the second, her reflections reach out, trying to stop her. "Don't listen to them," she tells herself. "They're just another trick." As Onyx continues her rampage through the mirror room, the entire mansion shudders. The collector's voice rings out, filled with rage and fear. "Stop! You don't know what you're doing." Zephyr and Ember feel the change in the house's rhythm. The fleshy heart begins to beat erratically, and the faces formed in its surface twist in agony. "Whatever Onyx is doing," Zephyr says, "it's working. We need to find her." Lyric, still fleeing from the horrors pursuing her, notices the paintings on the walls beginning to fade, their subjects' eyes widening in a mixture of hope and terror. She hears a whisper, "The artist's studio, find the original canvas." As the mansion's reality starts to unravel, our protagonists race against time to reunite and uncover the final secret that could lead to their salvation or their doom. In a moment of cosmic synchronicity, Zephyr, Ember, and Lyric converge on the mirror room just as Onyx shatters the last reflective surface. The air crackles with released energy, and the mansion groans as if in pain. "Onyx!" Ember cries, rushing to embrace her friend. "You're okay." But Onyx's eyes are wild, her hands bleeding from the broken glass. "Are we?" she asks, her voice trembling. I've seen so many versions of us. How do we know what's real anymore?" Zephyr takes charge, his voice steady despite the fear evident in his eyes. "We stick together." "Lyric, you said something about an artist's studio?" As Lyric nods, explaining her discovery, the walls around them begin to ripple and shift. The collector's voice booms, tinged with desperation. "You think you can escape? You're already part of my masterpiece." Following Lyric's intuition, the group navigates the now unstable corridors of the mansion. Paintings melt, sculptures twist into impossible shapes, and the very floor beneath their feet undulates like waves on a stormy sea. They burst into a vast, circular room. Easels form a ring around the perimeter, each holding a canvas that depicts a scene of horror, people transforming into objects, landscapes devouring unsuspecting victims, and worse. But it's the massive canvas at the center that draws their attention. The original canvas, lyric whispers in awe and terror. The painting seems to encompass the entire mansion and its grounds, every detail rendered with inhuman precision. And there, in one corner, they see themselves, entering the mansion, exploring its rooms, fleeing its horrors. We're already in the painting, Ember realizes, her empathic senses overwhelmed. We've been part of it from the beginning. As they stare at the original canvas, trying to comprehend their situation, a chilling laugh fills the room. The collector materializes, but he's no longer the suave, enigmatic figure they first encountered. His form shifts and writhes, amalgamation of every horror he's ever collected. Faces push against his skin from within, silently screaming. His eyes are swirling vortexes of color, and when he speaks, it's with 1,000 voices in unison. "Do you understand now?" the collector asks, gesturing to the canvas. "I am the artist, and this world is my canvas. Every fear, every nightmare, every delicious moment of terror, all of it feeds my creation." Zephyr steps forward, placing himself between the collector and his friends. "Why us? Why bring us here?" The collector's laugh is like breaking glass. "Why does an artist add new colors to his palette? You, with your youth, your hopes, your fears, you're the fresh pigments I need to keep my masterpiece alive." As the teenagers recoil from the collector's grotesque form, Ember suddenly gasps, doubling over in pain. "I can feel them," she whimpers. "All the souls trapped in the painting. They're trying to communicate." The collector's eyes narrow. "Impossible. Once they're part of the collection, they're mine forever." But Ember straightens, her eyes glowing with an inner light. When she speaks, it's with a voice that echoes with countless others. "We challenge you, collector. A game of creation and destruction. If we win, you release us all. If we lose..." "If you lose," the collector interrupts, a cruel smile twisting his features, "you don't just join the collection. You become the collection, your essence is fueling my art for eternity." Zephyr looks at his friends, seeing the determination in their eyes. "We accept," he says, praying he's not dooming them all. The rules of the game become clear as reality shifts around them. Each teenager finds themselves before a blank canvas, paintbrushes hovering in the air before them. "Create your worst nightmare," the collector's voice echoes. "Make it real, make it terrifying. The most horrifying creation wins freedom for you all. Fail, and, well, you know the consequences." As they begin to paint, the canvases come alive. Lyrics' brushstrokes form a world where art itself is forbidden, creativity punishable by a fate worse than death. Onyx's canvas shows a reality where she's completely alone, forgotten by everyone she's ever known. Zephyr's nightmare takes shape as a world where he's forced to watch his friends suffer, powerless to help. And Ember? Her canvas remains blank, her empathic abilities overwhelming her as she feels the fear and pain of everyone in the mansion. The collector moves between them, his form shifting and changing as he absorbs the horrors they create. "Exquisite," he murmurs. "But is it enough?" As her friends pour their fears onto their canvases, Ember stands frozen, tears streaming down her face. The collected terror of centuries washes over her, threatening to drown her in an ocean of despair. But then, in the depths of that emotional maelstrom, she feels something else. A spark of hope, a flicker of defiance. It grows stronger as she focuses on it, and suddenly she understands. "Stop!" Ember cries out to her friends. This isn't the way. We're giving him exactly what he wants. The others pause, looking at her in confusion. The collector's eyes narrow suspiciously. Don't you see? Ember continues, her voice growing stronger. Fear isn't the most powerful emotion. It's love, it's hope, it's the connections between us. That's what he can't stand. With newfound determination, Ember picks up her brush and begins to paint. But instead of nightmares, she creates a scene of beauty and warmth, of friends supporting each other in the darkest of times. Inspired by Ember's revelation, the others begin to transform their canvases. Lyric's forbidden art world becomes one of boundless creativity and expression. Onyx's lonely existence shifts to a tapestry of deep, meaningful connections. Zephyr's scene of helplessness transforms into one of strength through unity. As they paint, the very fabric of the mansion begins to change. The shadows recede, replaced by warm light. The trapped souls in the paintings and objects start to stir, their eyes lighting up with hope. The collector howls in rage and pain. No! This isn't how the game is played. You can't do this. But his protests fall on deaf ears as the teenagers, now linked by their shared purpose, continue to create a reality built on positive emotions rather than fear. As the mansion fills with light and hope, the collector's form begins to destabilize. The faces trapped within him cry out, pushing against his skin, seeking freedom. You fools, he shrieks, his voice distorting. Without fear, without darkness, this realm cannot exist. You'll doom us all. But Zephyr steps forward, his voice steady. No, you're wrong. We're not destroying your world. We're transforming it. Fear doesn't have to be the foundation. We can build something better. The other teenagers join him, forming a united front against the collector's fading power. Ember reaches out, her empathic abilities now a conduit for the hope and determination flooding the mansion. With a sound like shattering glass, the collector's form explodes in a burst of light. The trapped souls stream out, each one a point of brilliant radiance. They swirl around the room, some pausing to brush against the teenagers in gratitude before dispersing. The original canvas at the center of the room begins to change. The scenes of horror and terror melt away, replaced by images of beauty, courage, and human connection. The mansion itself seems to sigh, as if a great burden has been lifted. Quill, restored to his human form, stumbles into the room. What happened? He asks, dazed but whole. Lyric rushes to embrace him, tears of joy in her eyes. We did it, she says. We broke the cycle. As the dust settles, the teenagers find themselves in a transformed space. The mansion, once a labyrinth of horrors, has become a sanctuary of light and warmth. The artifacts that once trapped souls now display moments of triumph over adversity. Zephyr, ever the leader, turns to his friends. We should leave, find our way back home. But Ember, her hand on the wall, shakes her head. I don't think we can. At least, not yet. This place, it still needs us. Onyx nods in agreement. We destroyed the old reality. Now we have to help shape the new one. The group looks at each other, a mix of trepidation and excitement in their eyes. They've been through hell together, and now they face a new challenge, creating heaven from the ashes of nightmare. In the days that follow, the teenagers learn to harness the creative power that once fueled the collector's dark artistry. They discover that they can reshape rooms with a thought, create wonders with a gesture. Zephyr takes charge of the entrance hall, crafting a welcoming space that offers comfort to lost souls who might stumble upon the mansion. Lyric transforms the gallery into a place of inspiring beauty, where art heals instead of traps. Quill, forever changed by his experience, turns the library into a repository of knowledge that empowers rather than enslaves. Onyx, embracing her newfound connections, creates spaces throughout the mansion where people can come together and support each other. And Ember? She becomes the heart of the mansion, her empathy allowing her to sense those in need and guide them to the help they seek. Weeks pass, and the mansion settles into its new form. Then, one stormy night, there's a knock at the door. The teenagers gather nervously in the entrance hall as Zephyr opens it. A young woman stands there, soaked to the bone and trembling. "Please," she says, her eyes wild with fear, "I need help. Something's been chasing me, and I don't know where else to go." For a moment, the teenagers are transported back to their own arrival at the mansion. But now, they're on the other side of the door. Ember steps forward, her voice gentle. "You're safe now. Come in, and let us help you face your fears." As the woman enters, the mansion seems to hum with anticipation. A new chapter is beginning. As they help the young woman, whose name they learn is Arya, the teenagers discover that remnants of the Collector's power still linger in the darker corners of the mansion. Shadows sometimes whisper with his voice, tempting them to give in to fear and despair. During a particularly trying night, when Arya's nightmares manifest as terrifying illusions, Onyx finds herself drawn to the room of mirrors. Though the glass is long shattered, she sees fleeting reflections of the Collector, grinning malevolently. "You can't escape me entirely," his voice echoes. "I am fear itself. As long as there is darkness in the human heart, a part of me will always exist." But Onyx stands firm. "You're right," she says. "Fear will always exist. But now, we know how to face it. Together." Months pass, and word spreads in whispers and rumors about a place of healing and transformation. More lost souls find their way to the mansion, each carrying their own burdens of fear and pain. The teenagers, now more confident in their roles as guardians, work tirelessly to help each visitor. But the constant exposure to others' traumas begins to take its toll, especially on Ember. One night, overwhelmed by the weight of so much emotion, Ember flees to the heart of the mansion, the room that once housed the pulsing, fleshy mass of the Collector's power. Now, it's a serene meditation space, but Ember falls to her knees, sobbing. "I don't know if I can do this anymore," she whispers. "It's too much." As if in response, the room begins to glow softly. The combined essence of all those they've helped fills the space, surrounding Ember with warmth and support. She realizes that she's not alone in bearing this burden. The very mansion itself, transformed by their efforts, is there to support them. While comforting a visitor plagued by writer's block, Quill makes a startling discovery. The words that once invaded his body, turning him into a living book, haven't disappeared. Instead, they've become a part of him, granting him the ability to bring stories to life with just his voice. In the library, surrounded by eager listeners, Quill begins to tell a tale. As he speaks, the air shimmers, and scenes from the story appear like ghostly projections. The listeners gasp in wonder as they're transported into the narrative. Through this gift, Quill finds a way to teach others how to rewrite their own stories, to find courage and hope in the face of their deepest fears. Lyric, whose artistic talents have transformed much of the mansion into a wonderland of inspiring imagery, faces a crisis of her own. She stands before a blank canvas, brush in hand, paralyzed by the weight of creation. What if I create something that brings back the darkness, she confesses to Zephyr. What if my art becomes a trap again? Zephyr, who has grown into his role as a leader and confidant, places a reassuring hand on her shoulder. The power was never in the art itself, he says. It was in the intention behind it. Your heart is good, Lyric. Trust in that. With renewed confidence, Lyric begins to paint. The image that emerges is a perfect blend of light and shadow, a reminder that facing one's fears is the path to true strength. As the mansion's reputation grows, it attracts the attention of those who seek to exploit its power. A group of thrill seekers, led by a charismatic but dangerous individual named Malik, breaks into the mansion, seeking to conquer its legendary horrors. The teenagers are faced with a dilemma. They can't simply force the intruders to leave. The mansion's nature requires that those who enter must choose to leave of their own free will. But Malik and his followers are actively trying to stir up the remnants of the collector's influence, putting everyone at risk. It's Onyx who proposes a solution. We need to show them the truth, she says. Not just the horrors they're seeking, but the beauty and strength that comes from overcoming them. Working together, the Guardians of the Mansion create a series of trials for Malik and his group, challenges that force them to confront their own fears and hidden pain. In the final confrontation, Malik stands in the room that once housed the original canvas. The teenagers surround him, not as adversaries, but as guides. You came here seeking the ultimate fear, Zephyr says, his voice echoing with power. But what you really need is the ultimate truth. One by one, the teenagers share their stories, their own journeys from fear to hope. As they speak, the room fills with images of their experiences, both the darkness they faced and the light they discovered. Ember steps forward, her empathic abilities allowing Malik to feel the full weight of their experiences. The choice is yours, she says softly. Continue seeking hollow thrills, or embrace the real adventure of facing your fears and growing beyond them. For a long moment, Malik stands frozen. Then, with tears in his eyes, he nods. I understand now, he whispers. Teach me. Please. As Malik and his followers begin their own journey of transformation, the mansion seems to pulse with renewed energy. The last vestiges of the collector's influence fade away, replaced by an aura of healing and growth. The teenagers, now young adults, look at each other with pride and wonder. They've not only escaped a nightmare, they've turned it into a beacon of hope for others. As new visitors approach the mansion, seeking solace and strength, Zephyr turns to his friends with a smile. Ready for another adventure? He asks. Together, they step forward to greet the future, no longer afraid of the darkness, for they've learned to create their own light. Subscribe for more chilling tales from the Nightmare Maestro.